my good friend Josiah, another panelist, and I believe they are in a good position to answer the question. So I don't intend to take too much time. I'd rather give way for the panelists to do justice to the theme of the day, and hopefully I'll be back when the discussions are over. Thank you very much, Janet, and I wish everyone happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Janet, you're muted. Unmute.
Thank you, Ernest. Sorry about that. Thank you, Ernest, for that wonderful submission. Thank you so much. Without delaying, we are going to start, and I'm going to go ahead to introduce our panelists. Okay, so our first panelist is a math educator with a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from the City College of New York, and is currently pursuing a master's of education degree in instructional technology at Strayer University. She is very interested in involving herself in developing a more effective and efficient style of teaching with the utilization of technology to create customized learning experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Lydia Lutrot-Fox. Lydia, are you around? Kindly give us a hi or anything. Hello, Lydia. Hello, Lydia. Are you around?
Hi, hey everyone, good morning.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Moving on to the next speaker. Okay, so our next speaker is a software engineer and a data analyst with experience in providing insights from data sets and understandable data interpretation methods. She has a master's degree in information technology from Carnegie Mellon University, and she has a bachelor's degree in computer science from KNUST. She's passionate about using innovative ways to solve everyday problems, and currently working at Tenabio as a software engineer. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jane Awa. Jane, please, if you are here, kindly let us know with a hi or anything of your choice. Hello, Jane.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for being here with us. So moving on to our next panelist is in the person. Okay, I wouldn't say the name before. Okay, so our next panelist is the only guy in our midst, and I'm sure you already know who it is, but he's the CEO of iSpace Foundation, an innovation hub based in Accra, supporting tech and creative startups and entrepreneurs by providing them with training, mentorship, and co-working space. He's also the chairman of the Ghana Hubs Network, a technology innovation hub that serves as an umbrella body for all businesses, technology, and innovation hubs in Ghana. And he's also done varied work in across sectors ranging from entertainment to technology, and he has worked with the world's leading lifestyle concierge services, both in London and across Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Josiah. Josiah Edison. Please, are you here with us?
Yeah, morning, everyone.
Awesome. Nice to have you here. Okay, so we move on to the next panelist. She's also the founder and creator of Levers in Heels, a website bringing visibility to African women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. She's an avid advocate for African women in STEM and speaks passionately about women empowerment through STEM education, entrepreneurship, and skills development. She has spoken on various international platforms such as Qatar Economic Forum powered by Bloomberg and 2021 World Food Forum in partnership with the OECD Development Center and Sahel and West African Club Secretariat. She has demonstrated history of managing and implementing a portfolio of projects, programs, and partnerships in the areas of education, enterprise, and skills development in Ghana. She has a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering from the University of Ghana in 2018. She was also listed as one of the top 50 most influential young Ghanaians by Advanced Media. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Larissa Akrofi. Larissa, are you here with us?
Hi, everyone. Very good to be here. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. Okay, so our fifth panelist. Okay, she's best known for her role since 2006 as host and quiz mistress of the Ghana National Science and Mathematics Quiz TV program for senior high schools. I'm sure everyone knows who I'm talking about by now. She is the founding head of Department of Orthotics and Prosthetics at the University of Health and Allied Sciences, Ghana. She's also an associate professor and founding head of the Department of Biomedical Engineering at the University of Ghana. After receiving her international diploma, she proceeded to the University of Pennsylvania, where she earned a master's degree in engineering and also a PhD in bioengineering. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome in Professor Elsie Efa Kaufman. Hello, Elsie.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. We are happy to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
You are welcome. We are so happy to have you here today. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay. So as we all know our panelists, we are going to move straight into our discussion why we are here today. So as we all know, the theme for today's meeting is Women's STEM Talents, focusing on how African women are faring with the higher theme of International Women's Day, Break the Bias. So we are going to start right away. Okay. So we are going to start with Elsie. So how has your career growth journey in your career been so far?
Good morning, and thank you again for inviting me. I am an academic. I work at the University of Ghana. That's my primary appointment. Okay. And so as academics, we are supposed to do three things. The first is teaching. The next is research. And the final one is service. Service to the university, service to the community, service to our country, service to the world. And my career has gone well. I think my career has gone well. In fact, I have no regrets whatsoever. But in terms of expectations and the reality, there were some differences, which I think I should share. When I was coming home, I went outside to do my studies. I was in the US for many years, as the introduction said. And coming back, I thought I would come and do these three things in balance. So a bit of teaching, a bit of research, and then, the service. Yeah. What a wake-up call. Maybe it was naivety, because I should have known. If you want to start a program, you're not going to have anybody doing research with you. You're going to be spending your time training people from the very beginning, level 100, first year, until they get to a point where they can help you with research. So that's what actually happened to me. I spent a whole lot of my time teaching. Huge class sizes, large numbers of courses. When my class sizes got smaller, when engineering started, there were very few students, so the class sizes were more manageable. But I wound up with a lot of courses. In fact, the very beginning, there were only 2 of us in the department, so the teaching basically fell to to me, and I had a lot of courses to teach. I would go to class and students would ask me, so which course is this? I was like a primary school class teacher. Anyway, so the imbalance. And then with regard to research, it took me a while to get started on the research. And then I think we'll talk about challenges later, so let me not dwell too much on this.
Sure.
But I have had to be creative in my research. But where I have probably seen more visibility is the service, which you are all saying you recognize me for. And so with regard to the service, I have had a lot of impact with regard to service. I'm hearing an echo. I hope you can hear me okay. All right. Yeah, so with regard to service, there have been many opportunities to use my knowledge and what I had to offer to give opportunity to others to also be able to go through the journey that we are all going through. So yes, it's been an interesting journey. It's a journey that is still continuing, and there are different phases of the journey. And so it's going well so far. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That was interesting to hear. Okay, we are going to move on to Lydia. How has your growth process been so far in terms of your career? Please, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
My journey has been challenging, but yet also quite rewarding as well. Initially, I started off in biology and science, and I really thought I was going to go in the path of medicine. But along that journey, I realized that my first love is math. And in that, I had to change direction and follow my heart, right? Because for me, that journey, the journey on that math route is more fulfilling and more rewarding for me. So ever since I made that transition from science or biology into math, I've noticed that my journey has been more rewarding, exciting. I get to be a part of a change that I'm passionate about. And for me, working in the classroom with students from all ages, you know, from the primary level even to secondary and tertiary level, I find that my passion, my skills, my drive, it helps to motivate my students to learn and at least try, you know, at least try their best. So for me, I started off in one sector and found my way in another. And I definitely can see that sometimes when you fight against what you really and truly love, the journey tends to be a bit more challenging, right? And when I made that decision to go for exactly what I wanted, my journey was a lot more enjoyable, and I was able to see the results and be a part of the change that I really am looking for. And a part of that change that I'm looking for is, you know, students that are in underrepresented groups to get more exposure in learning math, understanding math, using problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, even incorporating their everyday lifestyle into learning. And I really enjoy that part of teaching, and I'm looking forward to where it's going to take me. Thank you.
Awesome. That was great. I hope we are all taking notes, especially those that always say math is difficult, math is difficult. We have a panelist here who is so in love with math. I think we can learn a thing or two from her. Thank you for that, Lydia. I'd like to ask a question based on what you said. You mentioned that you started from one career and ended up in another. How has that transition been like for all the ladies or gentlemen here who also probably are in a specific field, but they want to transition into another, but they are looking at how it's going to be like. Should I just stay in where I am, or I should move forward? What do you have to say?
Okay, thank you. So because math has always been my love, I've always kind of straddled both. So even though I was in the biology field, I also kept myself involved in teaching math, whether I worked in an after-school program or I tutored. I always tried to keep myself in that space. So making that transition over into math was quite easy for me because I had a lot of experience teaching math. And so I feel that for people who are not sure where they want to, what path they want to follow, you want to make sure that you have some experiences in both, or, you know, wherever direction that you want to go, try to gain some experience in that field so that when you make that decision to actually go in that direction, you already have some experience or an outlook into what it is you possibly would like to get into.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. That was brilliant. Okay, we'll move on to Jane. Okay, so same question goes for you, Jane. How has your growth journey in terms of your career been like?
Thank you, Janet. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's a great privilege for me to be here to talk to you all. And so for me, I think I've had the shortest career amongst everybody in the panel. However, it's interesting that I'm going to be speaking right after Lydia, because I've always enjoyed numbers as a person. I actually enjoyed maths too, probably because I spent most of my young age solving mathematical problems with my dad. And so when I was growing up, I always knew I was going to go into academia. However, I knew I was going to go into academia. So my plan was basically finish graduate school and go get a PhD, and then probably start some research and development and one of the universities back at home here in Ghana. So that was my plan as I was growing up. However, during my master's degree, I realized that it would be useful, or it must have been a little more useful for me if I had some industry work or experience done before I went to get my second degree. So after my second degree, I decided that it would be great to do some industry work, and that's how come I'm currently in the industry for a while. And up until I started looking out for a job, I was basically working in analytics and then data science, because like I said, I enjoyed solving mathematical problems. And so basically that's what I was doing. And even though things have not gone exactly how I planned, because according to my plan, I probably should have been pursuing a PhD, or pursuing a doctorate degree now. This is still working towards my goal. So the expectation is not, the expectation was to currently be working towards the degree now. However, this is still going to be working in the long run for me, and I think this works perfectly well. So for my career as a whole, currently where I am now, I'm building up and then getting ready to continue to go back and then complete this degree, like I said earlier, and then build on my skills and then give back to the general world. So thank you. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you so much for that wonderful submission. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to our next panelist, Josiah. We also want to ask you, how has your growth journey been in terms of your career?
Good morning, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. So for me, I think I've never had a career. I've never seen anything that I do in that respect as a career. I've just worked and started off at 16 in the UK, doing security work and all of those other things, and then moved to university. So in uni, set up a independent record label, working with local artists. And then fortunately enough, we then started working with BBC Radio 1 at that time. So we went on tour with the likes of Eminem, 50 Cent, and all of those. So we were really interested in music at that time. So we kind of made a transition into setting up our own record label. And you have to grow, I guess, and you have to pay bills and all of those other things. So moved into the corporate world and worked in London, then moved to Nigeria to also work in Nigeria, pretty much doing lifestyle management in the corporate sector. Then went to Ivory Coast, also worked in Ivory Coast doing corporate and lifestyle management, then moved back to London, and today I'm just doing what I'm doing with iSpace. So I guess I kind of moved from working for other people, setting up my own business, then going back to working in the corporate world again, and now doing what it is that I'm doing. So in respect, I don't really have a career, so to speak. I just work, really. So yeah, that's how I'm doing what it is that I'm doing at the moment. So
awesome. Thank you so much for that, Josiah. Wow, interesting. Okay, we move to Larissa. How has your career growth process been like so far?
Thanks, Janet. Again, happy International Women's Day, and very happy to be here, and happy to see familiar faces like Professor Kaufman, who's really one of the reasons why I'm here today. I started my career journey as an aspiring woman in STEM, having pursued a degree in biomedical engineering at the University of Ghana. At the time, one of the challenges that I faced in this male-dominating field of engineering was that I had very few female role models to look up to. I was one of just 4 young women in our class of about 40. And adding to this was the fact that there were and still are very few female lecturers in the field with whom I could identify with for the support that I needed. And so in an attempt to figure out what women in STEM were up to professionally, and also to keep myself motivated and inspired, I launched what is now called Leavers in Heels, which is currently a website that has been bringing visibility to African women in STEM for almost a decade. It really started with me interviewing Ghanaian women making strides in STEM for almost a decade and publishing their stories. This started to gain some traction, and I realized that other girls and women were getting inspired just as I was, mainly because we could and can now all envision what it's like to be a woman in STEM from our part of the world. Since then, Leavers in Heels has grown its audience reach and is now one of the fastest growing websites championing and bringing visibility to African women in STEM. It's driven by my mission and commitment to giving a voice to African women in STEM and to give them more visibility as role models to inspire and empower the next generation of African female STEM leaders. So for me, that's my interest and my commitment and my path right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Larissa. Thank you. Okay, so to Larissa once again. So what would you say to any other lady here or gentleman here who has been yearning for a mentor but doesn't get the opportunity? What would you say to such a person?
So it's actually one of the challenges that I was going to talk about today. I always say that it's very difficult to become something that you cannot see. And so it's very, very important to get mentors and role models. But it's something that I will talk about later today. I don't want to give so much away. I just want to say that there are so many role models in the system in STEM. Some of them are yet to be unearthed. And it's part of the reason why Leavers in Heels exists.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, wow, I'm learning so much. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. Back to you, Elsie. So what are the challenges that you have faced personally in your STEM careers? Or what other challenges do you think women in STEM face? And what are the approaches to use in standing up for ourselves as women in STEM?
All right. So the challenges are many, and many of the challenges are not unique to women. These are challenges for people who do STEM in general. But sometimes there are special challenges that are associated with women. So I'll talk generally and then maybe point out some of the issues that are specific to women. So to be where I am, and I told you about what I do, I'm an academic, I'm in the university. In order to be in this environment, there are many years of training ahead of you. I mean, many years of schooling. So you go all the way, finish a bachelor's, you do a master's, and then continue. You need a PhD to start a career in academia. And so the long years of training, and the training is not that, nothing good comes easy. So you have to be dedicated, you have to be diligent, you have to spend the time. And then at the same time, you have pressures from family asking you, so when are you starting a family? When are you you finally, okay, the pressure comes on, you are asked to get married, you get married, then where are the children? Where are the grandchildren? It never ends. So combining that kind of responsibility with the long years and dedicated training that is necessary, it requires some skill, right? So it's a challenge that may be specific to women, because I don't think the men get this kind of pressure. Then there's also the when you finally have a family, maintaining that family, sustaining that family when you are trying to build a career. It is not easy at all, especially when the children are younger. I remember my children when they were younger. In spite of what is happening, there are people around, they will still come to me. In the middle of the night, I will wake up, 3 a.m., somebody will be standing next to the bed, hungry, mommy. When I have worked most of the night and I need to get up in the morning to continue working, they are there. And nobody will satisfy them. It is mommy that has to do this. So it's not easy at all. And then during those periods in an academic career, one of the things that we do is the ability to move around. You know, we go to conferences to learn more in order to get ourselves recognized in our disciplines. How do you move when you don't have the support system to take care of the family while you're gone? You know, so these are some of the challenges that I personally experienced. And I could go on all day, but we have limited time. So let me stop here. But how did I deal with some of these challenges? First of all, I never said no to help. I don't say no to help. If I can delegate and there's somebody ready to take on the responsibility, I am willing and ready to do so, because it's very important to nurture a support system. Without that support system, I don't think I would have been able to go as far as I have. And so that is one of the ways in which I have managed these kinds of challenges.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Wow, I'm sure most of our panelists here or even our attendees can relate to you. Thank you so much for that. Okay. We'll move on to Lydia. What are the challenges you also face, and what are the approaches you use to just deal with them? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One challenge that I would emphasize is proving myself, right? There's a pressure to prove myself professionally that I'm worth it, right? That I am capable and I have the skills to, stand head to head or neck to neck with my other counterparts. And for me, how I combat that challenge is just by doing my work, just showing up and showing people that I have the ability and I have the skills. I feel that in order to tackle that type of challenge, confidence is key. If you're confident in yourself and you're confident in your ability, challenges are going to come, biases will arise. But if you understand your strength, you work within that strength to overcome your challenge. And so that's what for me, that's what I had to do in my experiences when I had to walk into my calculus classes or, in a male dominated class, and I'm probably one of two people. And I'd walk in and I will sit right in the front, in the middle, in front of the professor. They can see me. And I wasn't shy. Right? I knew what I knew and I went for it. Any question, I was going for it. That was me, and that was my way of showing those that doubted me that I do have the ability. Right. And so my confidence in myself and my abilities helped me to get through the challenge of proving my worth.
Wow, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Wow. Okay, we'll move on to Jane. What are the challenges you face in your career and how do you approach them in solving them? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Janet. So personally for me, there are a couple of challenges, but then I'll mention two main ones. So the very first one is sometimes there's some intimidation and then maybe confidence or the lack of it. So it's quite obvious that for the STEM, for industries and fields and in STEM, it's usually populated by men, like the first two speakers have already said. And it's a little intimidating sometimes when you go to classes or you go to work in a team and it's dominated by people from men or the male gender. So sometimes for me, one thing that I've found that works for me is first to build on my skills constantly, because new things for people that are in the technical people that are in technology or in the tech industry, there's always something new coming up. There's always something new that you have to learn. So, and one thing that has worked for me is to continuously build on my skills and then experiences. I've learned not to be complacent or relaxed when things seem to be going well. And the second thing is social pressure and influences. So for people in our parts of the world, especially in Africa, we do not expect a lot of ladies to be quite outspoken, even in the 21st century. So it's a little difficult for a lot of ladies, including myself sometimes, to share their thoughts or solutions to problems that they may have. And that's one challenge that I used to have. And one thing that I realized that was helpful to me was to be much more outspoken. And that's basically like practice it. So if I have a solution to a problem or something that we are discussing in a team that I'm working with, I try to speak out and make sure that no matter how it feels like or how I feel like sharing my opinion or sharing the solution that I've come up with, I still do that. I've learned to ask questions and ask them quickly so that when I do not know the solutions or I don't know how to solve a particular problem, I can learn from those. And one other thing is to make use of my transferable skills. So the good thing about STEM that I've come to realize is that one way or the other, they are interconnected. So there are some things that I learned from various parts of my education that I can use in my career now. And that's basically what I do. So basically I learn, I ask questions and then make as much effort I can to learn from my mistakes as early as I can, and then try not to be intimidated and build my confidence. So that's what I've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, so based on one of the things you said, you mentioned you try to build upon yourself, right? So as a software engineer or data analyst, how do you build on your skills for fellow attendees here who may want to hear about that? And what do you do exactly to build on your skills?
That's great. So usually for the software engineer, and then I actually do the software engineering and then data analysis. And for each of these jobs, there are descriptions. And every year there's something new that comes up with the description. There's a new program or there's a new software that's coming up. So I try to keep myself updated I'm usually on LinkedIn looking up job description, not necessarily because I'm looking for a new job, but because I want to keep myself up to date with my colleagues and people that probably will be on the job market with me the next time I decide to go looking for a job. So I look at the job descriptions, the ones that I'm lacking in or things that I do not have much knowledge in, then I go researching on those. So right now there seems to be a lot of information, and the issue is to sieve out what is really useful to you at each point in time. So for me, that's what I usually do. I look out job descriptions, skills that I'm lacking in, and then look out for the skills that I'm lacking, and then I go online to get some more educational knowledge on those. So that's what I do.
So thank you so much for that. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so move on to Josiah. Okay, so how about you? What are the challenges you face as a male in STEM, and how do you approach them?
Okay, great question. I think there's a little bit of something that Elsie said, and Professor said, and I need to kind of touch on that a little bit and move to the question. Men also do face societal pressures when it comes to like getting married, when you're going to have kids, settle down, do all of those things. See, so that is not only directed at females, but yeah, I mean, 80-90% of the time is directed at the females, but men do also get that kind of pressure. Talking about the challenges that I faced is growing up in the UK and also coming back here in the UK, naturally, you face racism and all of those other things. People don't feel like you're good enough to be in certain corporate environments and all those other things. So you learn to kind of almost morph into how you communicate when you're with your friends, quote unquote, right? And then corporate speak. So you present well, you wear the suits, you cut your hair a certain way and behave a certain manner in order for you to fit in. But then I call it the Clark Kent effect. So you are Superman in a different environment, and then when you're in the corporate world, you dress differently, right? And so you kind of learn to navigate that. But what I found that my most difficult thing, the most difficult thing for me was moving to Ghana to do the business that I'm doing in Ghana, right? Is the fact that Ghanaians have a problem with people that are outspoken, whether male or female. So a lot of people are very insecure. So then I find myself in a situation where I have 20 years worth of working experience, right? Then in the tech industry, it's full of young people. So somebody from the age of 25, 26, 27, up to 30. And I'm here looking at them, talking to them, and they feel like I'm the same age as them, right? So when you have a conversation with them, they're looking at you like, oh, too no, and all of those other things. So they kind of want to paint you off that, you know, you're aggressive, you're overconfident, and it works against you. So even with what I do, I find that the people don't even want to work with me, because when you ask a question, I have 20, 30 different opinions. Why? Because I've worked in different environments and I have different perspectives on things. But you have a situation where here, most people haven't traveled even outside of their community. See, so when you say something, they take it personally, right? So you have people that wouldn't even engage you because you come across too arrogant or too aggressive. So that works against you. Now, when you look at entitlement as well, so people feel like they're entitled to your time, you know, space and all of those other things. And you're boxed in because, again, you have to mentor people, you have to work with people, you have to guide people. And I guess, again, dealing with fragile egos in our ecosystem is a problem, particularly in the tech ecosystem, because we have a lot of gatekeepers. And even the gatekeepers are people that probably traveled abroad, worked abroad, and then came back home and fought, and they have the fortune of having the knowledge of having traveled. So again, they are the people that everybody speaks to, right? And I am totally against gatekeepers, because I don't understand why you should be the chosen or you should determine who should do A, B, C, and D, right? See, so I guess the problem is always going to be not respecting, quote unquote, what status quo is, right? And in Ghana, if you do not respect people, you will start So for me, that's been the challenge. Me dealing with racism, coming to Ghana, dealing with people saying you're too north, so too northism, and then dealing with entitlement and a lot of fragile egos that we have, and it cut across both male and female. And also you see that because we are creating the narrative of gender empowerment, and we put in a lot of women in positions, some of these women have much more fragile egos than the men. So it's like if you do not compliment them or you don't say certain things the way they like it, then they block you in certain rooms, right? We've seen it, it happens in the tech world. So it's not just a male narrative, it cuts across both genders. But yeah, that's been the challenges that I've been facing so far. So.
Okay, thank you for that, Josiah. Oh, wow. So we would want to know, how do you actually approach solving such an issue? What do you do to, like, to solve this problem that you face, this challenge? How do you approach it?
I just find different partners that want to work with me. And most of my partners are all external, so abroad, and it makes it easier. So this way I do not, because I don't beg for permission. I'm not one of those people that I have to, entertain your childism or your ego just so that you can give me something. Because when you do that, you're feeding into that kind of narrative. You're feeding that behavior. So for me, I find partners that would help me navigate that and also put my money where my mouth is. See, so when I build websites or apps or do consultancy for third-party organizations, I plow that money into my own project. So that way, I don't have to deal with those kind of egos. So that's what I've been doing. I've kind of really put my money where my mouth is, or find partners that align with my thought process and just work with them.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you very much. Wow, interesting. Okay, we'll move on to Larissa. What challenges do you also face as a woman in STEM, and how do you approach solving them?
Thanks, Janet. So I was smiling when Professor Kaufman was talking about her kids waking up at 3 a.m. to ask her questions. And it's funny because that's where I am in my life right now. I have one who is just keeping me up every 2 hours, and then the other just keeps shouting, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," the whole day. But yeah, one of my main worries while in school and after graduating wasn't necessarily securing a job, but largely a lack of confidence on my part. It's easy to feel a lack of confidence in various settings, but when it comes to understanding what we are taught in school, or when I was applying for jobs, or when I was to work on a project, for example, many times I felt that I needed to be an expert on a topic to speak up, or to apply for a position, or to work on that project. And I'm sure a lot of young women go through this. But it's important to remember that no one is an expert in the beginning. And if you have something to contribute, you should speak up. Josiah was talking about how a lot of us don't like to speak up, and we are very intimidated by people who are outspoken. So it's very important that if you have something to contribute, you should learn to speak up. Don't let that fear, don't let that lack of confidence keep you from an opportunity. Another challenge that women in STEM face, and I also faced, and this is very dear to my heart, is the lack of relatable female role models. And I say relatable because it's very difficult to become something if you can't see it or envision it. But it's even harder if you can't relate to something, because we all come from different backgrounds and societies and cultures. And so this is something that I'm committed to changing by making African women in STEM more visible as role models, to inspire our girls and young women, and to improve their confidence and their abilities and aspirations in STEM.
Thank you for that, Larissa. Thank you very much. Wow. Okay, so this is to our attendees. I'm sure you're enjoying yourselves, and I wouldn't want your friends and family to miss out on this. So in a space of like 1 minute, can you all move to your social media handles, just post about this program, invite them. I'm also going to post the link to the session in the chat box. So just invite your friends to also come and learn from our amazing panelists. Hope you are good. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, we'll move to our next question. We are back to you, Elsie. So this question is much more relatable to our main theme, the International Women's Day theme. That's the break the bias. Okay, so how are African women's STEM talents doing in terms of bias? Okay, whether it's intentional or unintentional from colleagues, whether male or female, how are they doing? In particular, you, of course, but how are you doing? And how do women who face this kind of bias, how should they tackle it? Right? And how do, okay, I think we should, that would be okay for now. So yeah, how do we face this bias? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, unfortunately, bias still exists. And since we are tracing the journey, let me start from the beginning. Let me start from the beginning of my career here in Ghana, when I showed up in Ghana, Department of Biomedical Engineering. And I remember I would set up these teams, student teams to work on projects. And, almost always you would see that the team leader is male and the secretary had to be female. And that's only because I asked that the females must also be given some position. So the position was always secretary. That was the beginning. These days, I see different things. I see the young ladies doing well. I see them having a position of team leader. I see them getting first class, best students. And so that makes me happy, but unfortunately, the bias still exists. And personally, for me, in my line of work, a lot of the time it's not explicit. So I go to meetings, and a lot of the time I'm the only one, I'm the only female, because there are very few of us. In fact, let me mention right now, last year I was looking for female professors in engineering. There were only 3 of us, 2 at UMass and then me. I was so disappointed to find this out. So there are very few of us. So if I go to a meeting at a certain level, I am likely to be the only female. And the things that happen there may not be explicit. I don't think any of our male colleagues set out to go and do certain things, but they do happen. So the introductions will begin. A chairperson will start introducing, this is doctor, this is professor, that, all male, and then it gets to me, oh, and this is Auntie Elsie. Yes, it used to happen. It used to happen. These days, not so much, right? So these subtle ways of belittling your capabilities are still in existence. And how do I deal with it? For an incident that is as bad as this one, I would call the person out, not in a very threatening way, because, if you do that, you antagonize people. And Josiah, you are right. Speaking up in Ghana is a dangerous thing. And if you happen to be female, you will be sidelined. Next time, your voice will not even be heard. So the consequences are even greater for females for speaking up. And so you have to manage this very gently. You have to be very subtle. So you can make, I make jokes. So you see, so you call me Auntie Elsie, I will call you uncle something. But it draws attention to the inappropriateness of what has happened, right? So these are some of the things that I do. In addition to that, the explicit ones, it's unfortunate. You would think that it's just Ghana that this happens. I have a mentee who shared a story just from this past Saturday. She tried to play, she's in the UK, and she tried to play football with a group of men. They had promised her she could join. The following week, she comes back and they say, no, no women. And this is happening. How do you deal with it? You basically get your confidence up in yourself, that in your abilities, to be able to do what you want to do. Have an objective in mind. A lot of the time you may have to ignore some of these things because thinking too much about them just basically drains you of your energy. And so having a focus and focusing on what you want to achieve rather than dealing with some of these pettiness also has been of help to me. I can share more stories, but I think I have to stop now.
Thank you for that. Wow, wow, wow. I would also want to add another question in terms of that. How do you tackle bias that comes from fellow women, right? Probably your colleagues. There are women that also, not explicitly, but they also do that. How do you tackle that?
Yes, some of the issues have to do with the way in which we are brought up, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes some of the things that are biased, we ourselves don't even see as being biased. So as I mentioned, usually the women are few in my discipline, and so there are very few of us. And when we are appointed into a position, right, the expectations, they are the written expectations of what that position comes with. Well, if it's a man, the written ones are enough. I mean, if you are doing assessments, it's enough. And yet, when it's a female, there is an added responsibility to be motherly. Okay, and this comes even from the females themselves. The expectation that the person who has been appointed to a position of leadership must be motherly, and so they expect a certain, so reviews from even females may be negative because you are not motherly enough. See, so these expectations are some of the things that we have been dealing with. So how do we deal with this? Basically, creating awareness. A program like this is excellent because it gives us an opportunity to talk about them, because sometimes people are not even aware they are doing it.
Yeah.
And so just talking about it, sharing expectations much more openly, I think helps.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Lydia. So what are the biases African women face and how do we tackle them?
Okay, so I'm going to start off. We understand that African women are underrepresented in STEM positions, right? And so we first need to look at why. Why is that the case, right? And so we can think about possibly there's a lack of encouragement to pursue STEM jobs from an early age, right? It could be access to education, or access to education that exposes students or young women or young girls to STEM. Also, we can look at it from the point of discrimination in recruitment and promotions as well that we face in our STEM position. And so how do we tackle this? I agree with Professor Kaufman. I think that visibility is very important. I think that just like what you said, a platform like this showcasing women in STEM and sharing our experiences and our stories and our journeys to encourage girls and women to also pursue positions in STEM. Now, as for me, in terms of bias from other women, I'm kind of like on the other end of Professor Kaufman. Instead of women saying that looking at me being too motherly, often I get that sometimes I'm a bit too aggressive, right? I'm too too forward. and so again, it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Elsie, that I think that as women, we want to see each other in like a nurturing role. And if we step outside of that nurturing role, it's almost as if we're out of character, right? And so it's important to show that as women, we have different facets, right? I can be motherly, but I can also be very aggressive, right? And I can have many different faces and still be able to reach my goals. And so I think that as women, we have to understand that though society may view us as one way, we have to understand that there's so many layers to us, and we have to accept that, and we have to work within all of those different spaces.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to Jane. What biases do African women face and how do we tackle them?
Great. So I think I'll speak from someone who is currently in the tech industry. So you realize that there's a misconception that everybody in tech has to dress a particular way. So it's not okay. It's quite okay if you just dress anyhow, as long as your program runs or you're meeting a particular deadline, it's okay. I've come to realize, for me as a person, I like to, I think the way I dress makes me feel confident and then do my work very well. So I realized that I think my first, some of the teams that I joined, even whilst I was in school, people approached me in a particular way, and it made me feel isolated in some of my teams and in school, and then even for some of the internships that I was in, because people expect you to behave in a particular way because of how you dress, one, and because you are female. And I think even here in Ghana, like if you don't understand pidgin very well, there are some periods that makes it difficult for you to communicate or socialize very well with the teammates. So I've had to kind of learn how to communicate with people in such way. And even if it's not comfortable, you may have to know how to like behave like a woman and still act like a man in a way if you want to like work with the team or join the team to work very, very well. I've also realized that because of some of these bias, sometimes there's a constant need to prove myself, and this can lead to imposter syndrome in some cases, and that's not really helpful for productivity and building the career of any woman that will be in STEM. And I realize that imposter syndrome is, as she said, to just ladies, and men feel that too. So for me, one thing that I've done or I do that is helpful for me is to realize that everybody encounters this at one point in their career. Everybody encounters this at one point in their life. So how about I build myself? How about I ignore some of these things? I realize that at some point, sometimes it makes me feel isolated because it's more comfortable that way, but then that's not how things usually work, and that will not really be helpful. And I need to push ahead to make it possible for other ladies to also see that this is what's happening, and this is possible, and then a lady can also do that. And I think it's one of my favorite things about my company, because there are lots of ladies that are team leads, and they are quite outspoken. So if I've given the opportunity to learn that, and that's really, really helpful for the most part, and it's helping me to get to learn how to speak very well and learn how to communicate very well as a woman in STEM. So I think that's how basically we are faring as women in STEM. And it would be helpful if people do not just make assumptions that as a woman we expect you to do this, as an African woman we expect this from you. We should allow people to do their work and show what they can actually do, because there's so much that women can do. Like we've seen so many women do so many things, and we should allow them and give them the opportunity to be able to do that. So that's what I think.
Wow, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to Josiah. So your question is going to be like it's going to be two sides. Okay, so the first is, do you think there is a bias, right? As a man, do you think that women actually face this bias? Then the other question would be, what bias do men also face? Is there a bias against men, and how do they face them or tackle them as well? Thank you.
Okay, great questions. And it's yes to both. Yes, women do face biases cut across every single sector. But there are positive biases and then there are negative ones, right? So when you look at the service industry, for example, then you're going to see more women front-facing. When you go to the banks and all of those other things, that's what you're going to get, right? So positive discrimination towards women works over there. But then when you look at, even when you talk about STEM, because of the way the narrative has always been, a lot of the women tend to then want to either go to coding and all of those other things, but then don't do it for a long period of time. But there are other careers in STEM apart from coding. Right? See, so again, it's about looking at ways in which making it attractive enough. And I think Larissa talked about it, having role models in that space to push them there. So the downside of positive discrimination and biases is being the fact that we are trying to get women into tech, we naturally push them into the coding side. So now we've created an unbalance in the other side of tech, where now we have more men than women. So now we need to figure out to get the women in there. Now, when you talk about biases that men face a lot of biases, even, and it's from men generally, speaking in the corporate world, because you have to, I think the professor touched on it, you have to speak a certain way, act a certain way, and Lydia also talked about it, to fit into the boys club, the old boys club. We've seen it where if you do not, you didn't go to SEC or in SIPIM and all of those other things, nobody would give you, you know, a job or network, because men network, right? But really what it is you want to join a boys club and you're pressured into joining that. And if you don't belong in that space, again, bias against you from the school you went to. And I think one of the speakers talked about even your ability to speak Pidgin also contributes to that. Right? So men do face those pressures. You have a lot of men now that are, you know, joining fraternities and all of those other things so they can move up in the corporate world, right? See, so about your social class, your education, the language you speak, all of those are the biases the men face. And even when you look at, if I told my parent that I wanted to be a nurse, for example, I'll be looked at in a way that I'll probably have to have the earth open and swallow me, right? Because you're thinking nurse is a woman. You're supposed to be a doctor, right? So men do face those biases, but because we don't really talk about it, we just, you know, kind of pick yourself by the bootstrap and just keep moving. I think that's the reason why you don't hear a lot of men, biases towards men. But yeah, men do face biases in the corporate world. It happens, but I think it's more so towards women than it is to men.
Okay, thank you for that summation. Okay, we'll move to Larissa. What are the biases women in STEM face, and how do we tackle it?
Thanks, Janet. Wow, there are so many. But from speaking from experience, when I started university until when I graduated, I don't remember, you know, experiencing a lot of the opportunities that young people have today. Resources in many of our universities are stretched, they have been stretched. And so I personally like the emergence of tech and innovation hubs and centers in the country, and how young people are embracing these centers, and more importantly, how these centers and their initiatives are being intentional about reaching more women in STEM. For example, you have the likes of iSpace Foundation. You also have the likes of Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology, which runs a program that even takes top graduates from local universities and provides them with fully sponsored intensive programs that enable young people to start their own businesses, tech businesses. And so I think we need more of these linking up with our tertiary institutions to encourage innovation and to encourage more women to, you know, start thinking about developing their skills. Back then, it was very difficult to have the confidence to pursue an opportunity. But right now, I like to see that young people, especially young women, are being intentional about developing their skill sets and going after what they need. And now there are so many initiatives compared to when I was back in school. And I think Professor Kaufman can attest to that. I've come across many talented young women in STEM. And another thing that they lack is the continuous support that they need for their innovations to scale. And so instead of them becoming inspirations, they become cautionary tales. You see a lot of people saying, hey, look, she didn't make it, so you don't go and pursue this career path, do something else, do something easier. And so we need to fix that, because some of their innovations are quite brilliant, and we only see how brilliant they are when they are being implemented in other parts of the world with more support. And I think this needs to change, and it's one of the reasons why we suffer a brain drain, because a lot of our young talents feel like there isn't a platform for them to succeed locally, and so they prefer to pursue opportunities outside the country. But for me, these are some of the things that I have noticed in my journey and my experience.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. So in a few minutes or seconds, I want us to give our opinion on how men and women can come together, right, to actually work together to face this bias. Like, how do we come together? We don't only see it from a male's perspective or a woman's perspective, but we come together to tackle it. How do we do that? In a few seconds. From Elsie.
Yes, I started speaking about that.
Yeah.
First of all, realizing that we each have certain ways of looking at the world and looking at life. So we may have certain biases, and a lot of the time we walk around looking for confirmation bias. So we walk around and we look for examples that confirm what we believe. I think a little bit more of the open-mindedness that is required has to start happening or has to continue going on in order for us to change the way in which we look at each other. So you see, from the perspective of the man, he also faces his biases. And in fact, there are certain situations where we women actually benefit from bias because there are more scholarship opportunities, for example, for certain things that we want to do. These are all biases that we have, but being aware of the situation, making the effort to understand the dynamics of how things work. And, Larissa, what Larissa was talking about, funding opportunities, the research has shown funding opportunities for women much, much less, for some of these projects. Same with research. To do research, you need research grants, and women get fewer research grants. Women publish less. All of this, we know this, or there is information on this. Let's be more purposeful about finding the information that actually reflects what is happening, and let's be more sensitive to each other.
Thank you for that. How are you, Lydia? What do you think on this? How do men and women come together?
Yes, I completely agree with Professor Kaufman. I can just add that we just need to change the perspective, change the language. STEM is for all, right? We shouldn't, in the next 10, 15 years, we shouldn't have this conversation about women being excluded from STEM. We're at a time where now young girls can have access to this knowledge and information. And so if we start from young, just like what Josiah mentioned, that I didn't even think about, but yes, the bias that men also face in STEM, and like their projection versus a woman's projection. Sometimes a man may want to go in one direction and a female may want to go in another, but maybe society will say, no, that's not for you, go this direction. And so we have to open it up and change the perspective and the language and just make it open, just like what Dr. Kaufman said, just have a more open mind about the direction in which women and men can go in this field.
Thank you for that. Back to you, Jane.
Good. So I think for this, I'll just share a very short story briefly. So there was this training program that I went for one time, and there weren't a lot of ladies, obviously, but then we were paired to complete a particular task. And there was this gentleman that I had helped with something on our very first day, and I was paired with him. I was excited because this was someone that I had spoken to, so it wasn't someone I didn't work with. However, I felt some tension when we were working together, but I get a little competitive when it comes to such projects, so I still managed to make us finish one, and we did really good. So after that, I decided to ask him, why was he behaving the way he did? And he said to me that initially he didn't like the idea. When he realized he was paired with a lady, he was disappointed. So this is an initial assumption that he made, and because of that, he didn't do his best in doing this particular project. He didn't bring his all, but we still managed to do very well in that particular task. So I think, like I said earlier, initially we shouldn't make assumptions. We shouldn't just think that because I've met people that are like this, not just females, but like maybe someone from this particular background doesn't have a lot of skills in this particular area that I expect them to. That's an assumption that you've even made before meeting the person or having to work with the person. We should give people the opportunity to do what they are supposed to do and prove themselves, and not just make assumptions and then throw them off. So I think that's one thing that would be really helpful.
Thank
you,
you.
Gina.
Thank you for that. Back to you, Josiah.
So what do we need to do? I think both men and women can work together to kind of move this biases off our table. And I think what Linda and Professor and James said made perfectly sense. And it's all about finding allies, right? Finding people that want to can make the change, not because sometimes we only tend to be more activist about it, vocal about it, but it's about talking to people that own companies, because biases, quote unquote, are systematic, right? So they're part of a culture, they're part of organizations, and it's part of a DNA of an organization. So it's about finding people that exist in these organizations that will be your allies, that will look at recruitment. I think Linda touched on it before, looking at recruitment, looking at the policies in which the organizations tend to have. So we need to work together. We need to have more of the conversation. It shouldn't be, I don't think it should be a fight, and it's never a fight, it's a conversation. And also where I would say patience comes in is the fact that we have to know that a lot of these conversations are new to our culture, and we need to have the right people that actually are passionate about it, that understand how to implement these changes to be on board. It should not be a bandwagon type approach where, because right now we even seen it in the tech industry where certain men are involved in women programs because it's the norm, it's the thing to do now, right? But we need people that actually believe in it. We have they have the track record to show that this is what they're passionate about, and they own companies that implement these changes. So we both need to work together, but we need to look at people who own organizations being allies, because that's where the true change is. It's not going to be just talking about it. We need people that are willing to put boots on the ground and then implement those changes.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Before we move to Larissa, I want to okay, so a week ago we had a celebration week where we celebrated a few women in STEM in addition to our speakers, and one of them is here, Kafui Yevu. Thank you for being here. Can you kindly unmute your microphone and say a word or two, if you don't mind? Hello, Kafui. Okay, as we wait for her, Larissa, you could move on, please.
Thanks, Janet. So while the number of women in STEM seems to be increasing and the situation seems to be improving, this is not sufficient to bring about the comprehensive long-term change we want. And for change to really happen, I think it's important to engage both women and men, but also keep in mind the dynamics in our education system. So we need to engage parents and teachers as well. I'll give a short scenario. I had the opportunity to be on a panel to interview young girls pursuing science at the secondary high level. They were trying to get scholarships, and one of them mentioned to me that her teacher told her not to pursue any STEM related course because first of all, it's difficult. Secondly, she needs to think about, getting married, settling down, having kids. And you realize that there's so much pressure on us women, not just in education, but in the workforce as well. We really need to start thinking about changing policies within our workforce to support women, especially in STEM, because a lot of these policies that are already in place were really set up by men. without really understanding the challenges and barriers that we face as women. And so we really need to change that to create an enabling environment for both parties to work together to achieve the ultimate goals in their workplace.
Thank you all for that wonderful submission. Thank you very much. Okay, so I want to ask another question to all panelists. I think Josiah mentioned it in his submission. It's about our culture and how workplaces, the CEOs, the heads of workplaces, how they can also come together to help us break these biases. And in terms of culture, how we can, let's say, in terms of the culture, how our culture is, how do we still go on to breaking the bias and still maintain our culture, right? I hope the question is clear. This will be to you, Elsie.
It's not easy because, in fact, if you go to most workplaces, they will tell you that the policies are gender blind, you know, and so it's not a matter of women should do this. They create an open field, and yet the issues are still there. It starts right from the beginning, you know, in our culture. When somebody has a child and they ask, what did you have, a human being or Nipa, Nipa now, the alternative, right? That is where it begins. So it's something that is part of our subconscious. It will take us right from the beginning, you know, from our family situation. We don't have to wait until we get to the workplace because we carry our biases to the workplace. So this is something, again, Larissa has mentioned the role of parents. Let's start from there. When the child is born, we are both types are human. Expectations should be similar. I mean, you don't create these boxes for people to fill. If there's housework, all children should be involved in the housework. It has to be seen as a team, you know, working towards a goal. And it is through practice of these things that when you go to the workplace, you are more likely to think of your fellow as equal to yourself and as capable, just as capable as you. So we have to start right from the beginning. Right from the beginning. We don't have to wait until we become workers before we start thinking about changing workplace culture.
All right, thank you for that. We move to you, Lydia.
Professor Kaufman said it beautifully. I totally agree with starting from the beginning. Maybe I can add, once we are in the workplace, just creating an environment for men and women, creating like an open space for men and women to talk about their experiences. If you're looking at from like a CEO level, maybe, you know, the CEO should have opportunities where they can meet with, you know, their colleagues and other employees, just to get together and just talk about their experiences working within the organization. It may not be related to the work itself, but just how we interact with each other socially and culturally. Sometimes just opening it up beyond work and how we interact with each other can also help as well.
Thank you for that. We move on to Jane.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I feel like for the answer to your question specifically, and both for Kaufman and Lydia have spoken about it extensively. I really believe that it should start from the home, because for most of the biases that we've spoken about earlier, some of the people do not realize that they are doing it. It's not intentional. It's just basically how they've been brought up. And so I think that's one of the first places that it will start from. And also for companies or organizations, I think it will be helpful every once in a while there are talks or conversation on diversity and then inclusion, giving people the opportunity to share how they feel about their workplaces, and then give them the opportunity to suggest ways that they feel will make things comfortable for everybody and in the organization. So that's what I think.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Back to you, Josiah.
I mean, to add to what has already been said, I mean, with iSpace, we're working with 16, I think 22 of the hubs across Ghana on a GAP program, so gender awareness program, and then basically having the conversation about people being gender aware. So you're looking at diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? Breaking down even the meaning of what equity is supposed to be, not focusing so much on equality, but equity being one of the main things that we need to look at, and also inclusion. So it has to be an ongoing conversation, both internally and externally. Internally, I mean from an organization, externally from our society, even from our homes. And I think Professor touched on it. From our homes, for me, I still, from my age, I laugh when I hear both male and females arguing on social media about cooking, right? And I'm thinking cooking and cleaning is a life skills. Anybody's supposed to have it, right? You're supposed to learn how to clean yourself. You're supposed to learn how to cook for yourself. Now, if you happen to be in a relationship with the person and that's what they enjoy doing for you, then that's between you and the person. But it should never be a carpet-bombed behavior that all women should be cooking. Not everybody likes cooking. So that conversation for me should be redundant, but it starts from home, where our parents condition us in a way that men are supposed to do this and then women are supposed to do that. So we naturally then take that into the corporate world. So if you want that change, it has to start from home. And again, I know there were a lot of women on here, and I would also like to throw the ball at you in that sense, or to you, that you are also responsible because you carry on that behavior. I've been in rooms where we have men and women in a room. There is an event that's finished, and you see the women will get up and start cleaning. So naturally, the guys will sit there and watch you do it, right? And you shouldn't. You should just take your dish that you ate or the cup that you just put it in the bin. There's no obligation for you to clean the whole room. So naturally, if you are in the office and all your women gravitate towards doing that, then the men will step back and watch you do it. Because men are usually step back and watch people do it. But if we have to do it, we will do it. So again, be conscious of that behavior, or learn to relearn that behavior. And then we will also learn to, make sure those biases don't happen. So yeah, we have to work together. It's both a male and female thing. And it starts with the next generation coming up. We have to be very conscious. We have to be intentional about breaking biases. It's not a conversation that you just have. You have to be intentional how we interact personally and how we interact with people external of us. So for me, it has to be something that we have to be intentional about it, purposeful, and yeah, passionate about getting it done. So find the right people, both male and female, to get it done.
Wow, that was beautifully said, Josiah. Nice. Okay, we'll move to Larissa.
Thanks, Janet. So in our parts of the world, the key drivers, I would say, preventing girls from accessing not just STEM, but education in general, are social norms and traditional cultural values. And I think Jane mentioned this. It's what people know. And so we really need to involve them, engage all actors, like I said, parents, guardians, teachers, and educate them on why it's important for girls to have an education first, and be able to understand why it's important to give girls equal opportunities as their sons, as their brothers, as their husbands. And these perceptions are reinforced by limited number of successful women in STEM, for that matter. And so it's important, again, to throw more light on women in STEM from where we are, so that these parents, teachers will see that, oh, okay, so this is a successful woman in STEM, so it's possible for young girls to follow on that path and be successful. Another important thing that I wanted to touch on is something very interesting. Even within the STEM space, certain teachers or parents would advise girls to pursue certain STEM courses. For example, some of them will tell you that, oh, medicine is easier than engineering, so why don't you go ahead and pursue medicine? And engineering is very masculine. You don't want people to call you a boy or whatever funny names teasing you. We need to change that narrative. Yes, engineering is difficult. Medicine is also difficult, but it's very, very, very important that we change the narrative around that. It's possible to pursue any of these STEM courses.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you all. Okay, we'll move to our last question for this section. That would be the best career hacks that any woman would want to explore STEM careers. What best career hacks can you give to all women here in order to explore STEM careers? This is for you, Elsie.
Yes. So these are the things that have worked for me.
Okay.
Being purposeful, basically being purposeful, having a plan. If you don't have time management skills, invest in a way of acquiring these skills because you will need them. These are, doing something in STEM doesn't come on a silver platter. You have to work at it. And so making sure that you are organized, because the responsibilities don't reduce. The responsibilities get bigger and bigger the higher you go. And so learning early on how to manage your time, how to make sure that you are purposeful, you know why you are working towards certain objectives and what it is you want to achieve. That helps a lot. Then the other thing is not falling into the trap. So yes, if you are a woman and you are in STEM, chances are you are going to be outnumbered. Now with the idea of, they call it gender balance. That's the name they give it. They call it gender balance. So if you are the only one, there's a tendency to call you to be part of every single activity just to go and balance this gender. It's a very wasteful process. If you have things to be doing and you are constantly balancing the gender, you will not achieve your objectives. So please do not fall into that trap. And learn, so that means learn how to say no. Learn how to say no to things that are not productive. That is what I have to offer.
Thank you. That was wonderful. We move to Lydia.
I find that critical feedback is very important. Again, Larissa spoke about this earlier. The challenge is, finding role models, or as a woman in STEM, finding someone that you look up to that can provide critical feedback to you to help you along your journey. And so I would recommend to select maybe about 2 to 3 people who you trust and who support you and support your goals. And you can, converse with these people, create a list of questions, and you bring these questions to, your role models and listen to their feedback. And try to be open-minded about what they have to say, and you determine whether or not you want to integrate their advice into your plan. And when you are able to do that, then it can help you move forward, and it can help you look at your journey in a different perspective, in a different way. So critical feedback is highly important, very important. And once you create a core, a team of people that you trust, you tend to meet them repeatedly. Have a schedule and where you would meet them and they interact with you. And believe it or not, even though you may look at someone as your role model, as you go through your journey and they see how you morph and change, you also inspire your role models as well. And so it's a give and take type of relationship. Right. And so, yes, I strongly believe that as we go through our journey, we cannot do it alone. And this is why programs like Levers and Heals and what Larissa is doing is very important, so that we can have women in these positions where we can use them as role models or use them as resources as we move along in our journey. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Before we move to Josiah, I would like all attendees to start jotting down your questions. We'll move on to Q&A very soon. So please kindly start jotting down your questions. We'll move to Jane. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you, Janet. So, I actually wrote down a lot of the things that Professor Kaufman and Anita just shared. I think they are really helpful. So I feel the things that have been helpful to me, I think I could share with the people that are also interested in joining STEM. I don't know if you want to start from now, but if this is you starting or this is your starting point, I would suggest that you read a lot. It will give you the opportunity to explore most of the fields in STEM, and then you find out what may work for you. And one thing that Lydia mentioned, I think it's really important to find a community of people. So like the leaders and in-house, and then developers and work for people that may be interested in STEM. There's a PyLadies Ghana. There are lots of these communities. They give you the opportunity to learn some of the base of the things that you need, and then you can build on those by reading, like I said in the first point. And like Lydia mentioned again, it is great to have mentors. They've been really helpful to me, and they've provided counseling and then guidance, and then references for the times when I needed them. So it will also be great to have a mentor. And one very important thing is to continue to develop yourself, no matter which of the fields that you choose. And then when you get to a particular door, like we said, there are a lot of ladies that are thinking about green systems. So you open the door and then mentor other people to help them to get to the door. So I think these are some steps that you can go through to help you and move into STEM, and then help other ladies to also join the STEM. To join STEM too.
Thank you for that, Jean. This is you, Josiah.
Okay. So for me, it's doing two things. Looking at a person. So by that I mean, look at what you can do personally. If you want to map out your career, what it is that personally you want to sacrifice or gain in doing what it is that you want to do. And then professionally, what do you know right now? What do you have right now? Who do you need to connect with in order for you to get to the next level? What do you have to study? What kind of qualifications that you need to use, and pace yourself. So if you want to be, let's say, the CEO of Microsoft, for example, if they come to you right now, ask yourself, am I ready for it, right? If you're not ready, that's where you do your own personal audit. If you're ready for it, what are the steps that I need to take in order for me to get to that level? Don't always jump 2 or 3 or 4 levels ahead of yourself, because you might struggle. And then that's where the imposter syndromes and self-confidence and all those things comes in, right? So take that step, grind it out, take your time, learn what you need to learn at every single step. And one of the most important things for me is, if you're lucky enough and your parents and everything are alive, walk your parents through those steps. Talk to your parents. Let them know exactly what it is that you're doing, what level that you're in, and what salaries are associated with them, the level that you're in right now. For them not to think that because you're in STEM, all your friends are earning $10,000 a month. How come you on, 2,000 Ghana cedis? You let them know that no, it's because I'm a junior developer, and in order for me to do this A, B, C, and D, before I can earn 10,000, I need to be a senior developer. That means that I have to learn how to code. I'll be outside of the house. I'll come home at certain times in the evening. And if you're okay with all of this, then yes, I can move to the next level. If you're not, then that's the reason why I'm not at that level yet. So you have to also let your guardians, your parents, your friends know every single step that you're taking, so that the pressures that they're going to put on you will not be there, right? And again, I think Larissa pretty much, all the panelists talked about finding role models, and be very mindful, know the difference between a mentor and a coach, right? Once you know the difference between the two, because a mentor can be a person that is not even in your field at all, but they've gone through certain experiences you've been through, and they can mentor you both on empathy, sympathy, and having integrity and all those core values. Whereas a coach is a person that has done what it is that you do. So they can coach you exactly how to maneuver, how to do the thing itself. So learn when you're looking for both. If you're lucky enough that your mentor and your coach are one of the same person, then hallelujah to you. But if it isn't, then learn to have both in that sense. So for me, that's what I would say. Do a personal and a professional audit. And yeah, just know thyself, your core competencies, and talk to your parents and guide them through your journey.
Thank you for that, Josiah. Thank you. We move to Larissa.
Thanks, Janet. So one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of young people today, a lot of young people today, especially young graduates, feel entitled to jobs that they aren't qualified for. And I always say that it's important for you to work on your skill set. You have to be intentional about developing your skills because, like I said earlier on, the resources in our educational institutions are already stretched. And so you need to put in work to make sure you develop your skill sets to apply for that job that you want to get in the long run. The good thing is that right now there's so many resources within institutions that I didn't even have access to. And it's very important. Internships. I remember there was an internship opportunity that was made possible by Professor Kaufman. And that really opened my eyes to a lot of the possibilities. And I think that a lot of young people overlook these things. During my time, a lot of young people didn't even want to pursue internship opportunities. And so it's it's very important that as young people, you're intentional about developing your skills. That's number one. The other thing is the fact that you pursued a STEM course at the university doesn't necessarily mean that you should follow along on that path. And I know Dr. Kaufman will feel some way about that. And I will speak from my experience. I am not in engineering, even though I study biomedical engineering, I am not in engineering. But a lot of the things that I learned from engineering, I am still applying in my job today. I'll give you an example, like the engineering design process, defining a problem, doing background research, specifying requirements, brainstorming solutions, choosing the best solution to testing and redesigning. I use that in my project. When I'm organizing events, when I'm trying to put together a concept note for a project, I still use this to this day. And so it's very important that you work on your skill sets, number one. And number two, if you go and study medicine or engineering, it doesn't mean that you have to follow along on that path. There are so many opportunities out there for you to make good use of your skills.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Wow. Thank you all for answering with your experiences so far. Great points. Yes, exactly. Okay, so we are moving on to Q&A session, and this will be for you attendees. Do we have any questions we would like any of our panelists to answer? You can raise your hands if you have any questions, please. Anyone? Okay, as we wait for the attendees, we have a few questions that we asked them. We asked the attendees in the registration form to state if they have any questions. So I'll go on to ask those. Okay, so this question is for Larissa. How do you remain focused as a woman when you realize that all opportunities are given to your male colleagues in your department, leaving you to struggle and look for your own opportunities?
How do I remain focused? I think it's really about knowing what you want from where you're at, in whatever journey, whatever path you're at the moment, if it's in education or in the workforce, knowing what you want out of it will keep you focused. It's very important for you to set goals for yourself. What do you want out of an education? What do you want to achieve in your career path? For me, that has really gone a long way to help me setting goals and accomplishing those goals.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so the attendees are saying that you guys have said it all. Oh, wow. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. So this will be to Lydia. It goes, if you find yourself in a society where women are regarded as powerless and therefore are not considered in decision making, and any suggestions you make are not given a listening ear, what will you do as a woman who has a little education and know a little about gender equality? This is from Evelyn from Winneba.
Wow. That's a society I will not like to be a part of. But, but if I had to be in that society, I would have to put in a lot of work, because I mean, I have a very playful personality, but I can also be quite tenacious. And so with my personality, I would have to make sure that I make change. There'll be a lot of talking, a lot of convincing, a lot of work that I would have to put into that. But going back to what I said before, you know, it's your confidence. I mean, it doesn't matter what system exists, right? We have to live within some type of system, and you just have to figure out, going back to Josiah, you have to do your personal audit. You have to understand who you are as a person and work within that confidence, because when you work in a confident space, nothing can hold you back. You understand? So try to figure out what skills that you have that you are very confident about, and work with those skills. And trust me, you will be able to get to exactly where you want to be.
Wow, thank you for that. Thank you for the submission. Okay, I'm trying to see if we have any questions from our attendees here. Okay, so there's one from Enoch Aban. He says, this is a general question as far as STEM in Ghana is concerned. In terms of infrastructure, tools, and training, what are your thoughts on how this can be improved? Okay, because of time, I think we'll direct this to Jane.
Okay, so I think that currently a lot of things are being done. Like most of the universities and the departments in the universities are getting some help with getting tools to help them, and in getting tools in helping and improve technology and then science in general. But still, some more can be done. I think most industries should work on like giving universities the opportunity to collaborate with them for their researches, and then help them, assist them with finances to get the tools that they need for their researches. So I think that's what can be done. But currently, I know some schools or various universities in various parts of the continent are trying to come together to do research in various parts of sciences and mostly engineering. But I believe that when the industry also gives the academia the opportunity to collaborate with them to do research and then build projects that can be useful to them, this can be really helpful for science in the sciences and then other STEM fields. So that's what I think.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so we'll move to Josiah. I think this question is related to Enoch's question as well, but we still take it. So it says, how helpful is the government's launched STEM institutions support in breaking the bias among men and women in STEM? This is from Veronica from Accra.
Great question. So I think the initial initiative was to just launch, women in code, or women, what do you call it, IT for women, and we thought that was it, right? And it's a good step, but we have to also look at the cultural side of things. So when you look at Eno's question about, is it for us to educate society? Yes, those of us that know the implications of gender biases and how does that affect, economy and poverty and all of those other stuff, it's up to us to then educate society on it. Because the reason why society has been the way it's been for so long is because nobody has really challenged the norms. So if you have that information and it's backed up by evidence and data, we need to educate society on it. And government by nature always want to implement things, but the implementation is badly executed. It's not their fault, it's just that they don't have expertise in that. And also the fact that, again, government by nature is a 4-year cycle, or it's an agenda electoral cycle. So they gravitate towards a particular initiative if it suits their narrative, right? So what we need is private sector and government partnership for some of these initiatives to last over 4 years. It should last 20, 30 years down the line. It should be something that the private sector definitely takes on board, takes the mantle, runs with it, and then gets government as a support mechanism. Government should not be the main vehicle for driving this kind of change for biases or any form of gender change or anything. They should just be a policy partner, so that even if this administration is not in play, the private sector and the education sector can carry on without it being affected by the government of the day. So for me, I think government is doing what they're doing right now is because they've been driven to do it, as opposed to be something that they're motivated to do it. But it's not a fault of their own. Again, they're learning just as much as we're learning. And most of us in the private sector just have to work with government and then show them how to do it and make it much more sustainable.
Okay, nice submission. All right, we have Nana Yase Wasapon raising a hand. Please unmute and have the floor. Nanaya, are you there? You can talk. Okay. You can unmute yourself, Nanaya. Okay, she's still not coming. Okay, we'll move to the next question then.
Hello, I'm very sorry. I was trying to unmute myself, sorry.
All right.
Okay, and so I'm Nanaya Sewa Sapon. I'm a lecturer with Cape Coast Technical University. I'm with the Mechanical Engineering Department. And so my question is, I see Prof. Elsie smiling. I think she's seen one female in engineering. All right. Okay, so I've always had, I don't want to say a problem, but a bit of concern when women are hailed, not hailed per se, but for lack of better words, let me use that, for certain things they do, either at the workplace or in school. And for example, in primary school, if the first position, if there's a tie between a woman and a man, we think of giving it to the woman. And then even in school, in the universities, we give best male award and best female award. And is it a best thing to do to, separate the two? Why don't we look at, say, the best, and then if we are looking at best 10 and there are females, that is fine. I feel if we begin to normalize, some of these things and not try to heal it, it makes it all better and it makes us all fit in as women. Well, I don't know what our take is on that. But then again, my second question is, how related is our theme, breaking the bias, to feminism? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. This will be directed to Elsie.
Yes, hello. Interesting question indeed. I look forward to a world where we don't need to make these distinctions. A world where it doesn't make news if, for example, the 4 top positions in a university are occupied by females, because we have had in the past where all those positions were occupied by males. It didn't make any news. It was normal. So I look forward to that world where we don't have to make these distinctions. But Nanaya, unfortunately, we are not there yet. If you look at your own discipline, and I mentioned earlier on in a submission that last year I was looking for female engineering professors. It was a hard search. In the end, I found 2 others other than me. So in Ghana, all of Ghana, 3 of us. It makes it very difficult for somebody, and Larissa has spoken to this, a young child who is deciding what to do for her future does not see any examples. How are they going to even go into that discipline? They don't see themselves. They don't feel like they belong there. And so what these recognition systems have, and there have been a multitude of them these days. Maybe that is what the challenge really is, that there are so many now that you really question which ones are valuable and which ones are not, right? But I think it is important to showcase who we have, what we have, to set the example. And then maybe, just maybe, when we have had enough of the young ladies entering into these disciplines and it is no longer necessary, we can stop. But for now, I think highlighting what some of these women are doing makes the visibility part of the process of making things a little bit more equitable.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add to what Professor just said quickly?
Sure.
If it's possible. I think it's always the situation where understanding equity and equality, right? And that's where I think we as a society, we now having that conversation about, okay, equal meaning, because equality just open the door and let everybody 50% representation and you think they've done it. But equity is drilling deeper to understanding that certain marginalized communities or genders were not invested in. That's the reason why we don't see a lot of them in these particular fields, right? Because even when you talk about engineering, it will probably be, even though you have a lot of men in there, if you dig deeper, you'll probably find that it's from families that can afford certain education for their children and all of those other stuff. So if you want more women or more people from marginalized communities in that particular field, we have to invest in them. And this is where the conversation needs to go, equity. So equity is investing in the people that have not naturally been allowed in the room. So let's not kind of muddy the waters and then think that equity and equality is the same thing. We can open the door and let 50% women, 50% men in one room, but in reality, you will find that the power still lies with the men, and then women will still lag behind. So let's focus more on equity, investing in the genders or societies that have not naturally had that investment, and then we can talk about equality later.
Okay, thank you for that. So this will be the last question.
Please, can I add a follow-up?
Okay, this will be your last question, please.
Yes, okay, that's fine. Well, but I was thinking that just like of Elsie, I listened to her, one of her examples where she said, because she's the only female in the field, and so most of the time she's called to represent in some programs. I have also been thinking that if it happens like that, then if we give such recognition to women, then it makes women compete against women instead of competing for the ultimate. Because if we are categorizing it in general and picking 10 people, and because of your qualification, you are part of the 10, it makes you work harder instead of being the only female to represent. So in the case of giving awards to best female and best male students, the best female is competing against females. But if we are giving overall best, and if it's for a female or a male alone, then that way every female will be competing for the ultimate instead of competing against their fellow women. And I don't know if we have a take on that.
Okay, this would go to you, Larissa.
Thanks, Janet. It's interesting. This same situation came up during the National Science and Math quiz when Francisca was the only female in, I think, the finals. And there was a lot of support for her, and people were saying they don't understand why she's gaining a lot of, traction, recognition, and why her fellow male colleagues weren't gaining as much recognition. But Nanaya, I think it's important to understand that, like Professor Kaufman said, we haven't gotten there yet at a point where women and men are given equal opportunities in STEM and due recognition. And so until that is done, it's important for girls to be able to envision success, what success looks like as a woman in STEM, and how to get there. And gradually, we'll be able to get to the point where they can have equal opportunities as men. I understand what you are saying about the prizes for best female and best male. It could create some sort of competition amongst girls. But have you ever also thought about it creating some sort of competition with boys? And not being able to pursue the ultimate goal of, being successful in general. So I think until we get there, it's important that we give girls the opportunity to, have equal opportunities as male in our institutions. That's what I would say.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so this is not a question per se. It's more of a state. Okay, I'll just go ahead to take it on. So Abigail is asking if all of you are willing to take on mentees, and how do we reach out to you? Yeah. That is to everyone, please. Are you willing to take on mentees, and how do they reach out to you? Okay, Josiah says yes. And I think you can also search them up on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and you could have that conversation there. Yes. And the last question, okay. Kafu is asking Dr. Kaufman if you have any internships slots for engineering graduates.
It depends. It depends on what the intern is looking for, because not all the things that I have are maybe related to the discipline or what skills they are trying to acquire. What I do have, I have contacts, and I can link up where necessary. I don't promise anything. It depends on what the intern is looking for.
Okay, thank you for that. So we are moving on to the announcement of Ladies in Data Science project GSET is taking on, and the dates for it is commence has not yet been out, but we are letting the public know to anticipate it. So this is a program for the unemployed ladies in Ghana who have finished their tertiary education but still haven't gotten work. So this is just to help them gain the skills in order to acquire skills in data science. Yes, and the benefits are you get internship or job opportunities. You also get a certificate for participation, and you also get career-focused skills. So this will be a really great opportunities for ladies who have interest in data science but don't know how to go about it. Yes, I'll call on Mr. Ernest Gavo to speak more on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Janet. This is a very, very ambitious and important project we've started, and we look forward to finding partners in all of us here, our speakers, our participants, and everyone who out there who wants to partner us on this journey. It's a very ambitious one towards eventually creating a data science center of excellence, an entire institution in itself with a lot of research in the background. So for this particular one, we are giving opportunity to our ladies, and as it came up during the conversation, there's need to highlight what our ladies or our women are doing in STEM. So this is one of those where we believe giving the opportunity to our young graduates, especially those without jobs now, to acquire these skills will give them the opportunity to, of course, get employed with those skills and also be the torchbearers for others to look up to. Because it came up from our conversation so far that it's a key area, people's ability to find mentors, find mentors, find people who inspire them. It's important. So we want to give these ladies this opportunity. The call will be out soon, so keep an eye on our social media pages so you can participate. It's going to be very interesting, and we look forward to finding partners in you, speakers, as mentors, coaches, and other people on the call who may have suggestions on how we can be successful at this, to reach out to Janet. And yeah, let's partner and do this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Ernest. So at this point, we'll call on Miriam to give us the closing statement.
Thank you.
Miriam, are you there? Wow.
Yeah, thank you. So this has been a very informative session, and I have personally learned a lot. So before I continue, I would like to wish every woman here a happy International Women's Day. So my first appreciation goes to the Lord Almighty for making this webinar a success and granting us.
Hello, Miriam. Can you speak up? We can't hear you.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So this has been a very informative session. And before I continue, I would like to wish every woman here a happy International Women's Day. Yes, so my first appreciation goes to God Almighty for making this webinar a success and granting us all good health to be here today. So I would also like to thank Ghana Society for Education Technology for organizing such an event to celebrate us women and to encourage us to do more and excel in our various fields. Yes, so I would also go on to thank our panelists for sharing such insights here today. And I've learned so much here today. And it's really an honor to be a part of this webinar and to listen to all the great insights all the panelists have shared today. So thank you very much. And I also go on to thank our audience for making it a point to be a part of this event. So this webinar wouldn't have been a success without you joining, and we thank you all for joining our webinar today. Finally, I'd like to say to every woman here today that let us all endeavor to be the best in every area we find ourselves. And to our men who have also joined the call, we say thank you very much. Thank you so much for your support in joining the conversation. As Josiah said, in joining the conversation and not the fight against the bias. So women can be empowered if the men are willing to share their power. And your presence here shows that we have come so far in the conversation to break the bias. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Thank you for that. So my name is Janet Anagli, the Monitoring and Evaluation Learning Growth Catalyst at Ghana Society for Education Technology. And it's been an honor to have you all here. Thank you for joining us and have a great day and week. Happy International Women's Day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And my email is in the chat. Anyone who would want to make any inquiries about the Ladies in Data Science projects can reach out to me. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, GSET.
Thank you. Bye.